My name is Camilla, 32 years old, and 8 years into what I thought was a happy marriage. After 12 grueling hours of travel with 3 flight delays, I finally arrived at my husband Derek's annual cabin getaway, bourbon in hand. I stood frozen as I heard him say, "If she vanished, that insurance money could clear my debts." His friend Jake laughed, adding, "Or finally date her sister guilt-free." I silently left the bourbon on the counter. By morning, I was on a plane to Costa Rica, my old life abandoned. If you're watching this video, let me know where you're viewing from and hit subscribe to follow my journey from betrayal to freedom. I built my career in Chicago as a marketing executive, climbing the corporate ladder through dedication and countless late nights. That's actually how I met Derek at a charity gala where my firm was handling the publicity. He approached me with a glass of champagne and a confident smile that made my heart flutter. "That speech you wrote for the CEO was brilliant," he said. I was surprised anyone had noticed it was my work. From that moment, Derek pursued me with an intensity that felt like something from a romance novel. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. My younger sister Madison was my maid of honor. She was always the wild one, the beauty of the family, while I was the responsible achiever. Derek and Madison got along well, sometimes too well, with inside jokes I wasn't part of. But I dismissed any concerns, attributing them to my own insecurity. Our early years together were passionate and exciting. Derek started his financial consulting business, and we purchased a lakefront condo that stretched our finances but fulfilled our dream of waking up to water views. My income provided stability while Derek's business went through its growing pains. "The clients are coming, Cam," he would assure me each month as our savings dwindled. "These things take time to build." I believed in him completely. Perhaps that was my first mistake. Over time, our passionate relationship settled into comfortable routine. I continued advancing in my career, eventually securing a promotion to marketing director that came with longer hours and more responsibility. Derek's business struggled with inconsistent clients and increasing competition. The stress began to show in the tightness around his eyes, the late-night glasses of whiskey, the arguments over bills. "I just need one big client to turn things around," became his mantra. Our conversations grew shorter, our intimate moments rarer. The emotional distance between us expanded while I told myself it was just a phase, just the natural evolution of marriage. We still had our rituals, like our standing Sunday brunch at the corner cafe and planning our someday trip to Costa Rica, my lifelong dream destination. "Next year for sure," Derek would say each time we postponed it for financial reasons. One constant in our marriage was Derek's annual guys' weekend, a tradition with his college friends. They would rent a cabin in the mountains and spend 3 days fishing, hiking, and according to Derek, remembering what it was like to be carefree college kids again. I never questioned this tradition, believing everyone needs space and time with old friends. This past year had been particularly stressful. Derek's business hit several setbacks, and he began coming home later and later, claiming to be networking or working on proposals. His phone became password protected, which he explained away as client confidentiality. I noticed him growing more interested in my work travel schedule, asking detailed questions about when I'd be gone and for how long. "Just trying to plan some surprise date nights," he said when I questioned him. Around this same time, Derek became oddly insistent about increasing our life insurance policies. "We're not getting any younger, Cam," he explained. "And with the condo mortgage, we need to protect each other. What if something happened to one of us?" The policies were substantial, far more than we needed for funeral expenses or mortgage coverage, but I signed the paperwork telling myself it was responsible financial planning. My promotion came with a substantial bonus, which momentarily eased the tension in our marriage. Derek seemed genuinely happy for me, throwing a small celebration dinner and buying me a beautiful bracelet I had admired months earlier. For a brief moment, I felt we were reconnecting. Then came his announcement about the annual cabin trip scheduled right after I would finish a major marketing campaign. I was exhausted emotionally and physically and longing for quality time with my husband. "I really need this, Cam," he said. "The stress has been killing me." I understood, but a part of me felt abandoned just when we seemed to be finding our way back to each other. After he left, my marketing assistant Jenny noticed my mood. "Why don't you surprise him?" she suggested during our lunch break. "Take some time off. You've earned it." "He wants space with his friends," I replied. 8 years of marriage trumps bro time," Jenny insisted. "Bring his favorite bourbon. He'll be thrilled to see you." I dismissed the idea initially, but it took root in my mind. I checked my substantial bank of vacation days never used because of my workaholic tendencies. What if I did surprise him? Show up at the cabin, spend one night, and then we could extend the trip just the two of us, perhaps even drive to a nearby luxury resort I knew of. That evening, I called Madison for her opinion. "Absolutely do it," she encouraged. "It's romantic. And maybe you can finally get a sense of what goes on at these boys' weekends." Her tone carried an odd note I couldn't quite place, but her enthusiasm convinced me. I booked the flights, arranged time off with my boss, and purchased a bottle of Derek's favorite small batch bourbon, an extravagant gift that cost nearly $300. I told only Jenny my plans, swearing her to secrecy. As I packed a small weekend bag, I felt a surge of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. I was certain this spontaneous act would reignite the spark in our marriage. Life has a peculiar way of answering our deepest questions, though rarely in the way we expect or want. The journey to surprise Derek began at O'Hare International Airport, where I arrived 3 hours early, vibrating with excitement and nervousness. I had packed light, just a carry-on suitcase with essentials and a small gift bag containing the expensive bourbon. The bottle was carefully wrapped and sealed, a splurge I justified as an investment in our marriage. As I waited at my gate, the first announcement came. "Flight 2473 to Denver will be delayed by approximately 2 hours due to mechanical issues." My heart sank, but I remained optimistic. I had built in a buffer between my connecting flights. This delay would cut it close, but was still manageable. I used the time to work on my laptop, answering emails and finalizing a presentation for the following week, assuming I would be back by then. An older woman sitting next to me noticed my frequent glances at the departure board. "Important meeting?" she asked kindly. "I'm surprising my husband," I replied, feeling a flush of pleasure at saying it aloud. "How wonderful," she said. "My Harold and I were married 52 years before he passed. The surprise visits were always the best." Her words reinforced my decision, and I showed her a picture of Derek on my phone. "He's handsome," she remarked. "You make a lovely couple." As we chatted, I found myself recalling the early days with Derek. Our honeymoon in Barbados, walking hand in hand along the beach at sunset. Derek had been so attentive then, always asking what I wanted to do, making sure I was happy. He surprised me with a picnic on a secluded beach, complete with champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. "You deserve to be spoiled, Cam," he had said, feeding me a strawberry. "I want to give you everything." The memory warmed me even as I finally boarded my delayed flight. The plane took off nearly 3 hours behind schedule, leaving me with a tight connection in Denver. As we approached Denver International Airport, the pilot announced more bad news. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to air traffic congestion, we'll be circling for approximately 30 minutes before landing." This delay would cause me to miss my connection to the small regional airport near the cabin. Anxiety bubbled up as I weighed my options. Should I abandon the trip, I checked flight schedules on my phone and found another connection departing 2 hours after my original flight. I could still make it arriving late evening instead of afternoon. While waiting in Denver for my rebooked flight, I called Madison needing reassurance. "Of course you should continue," she insisted. "This will make the surprise even better. Derek will be so impressed by your perseverance." "I don't know, Maddie. Maybe the universe is trying to tell me something." "Since when do you believe in signs you're Camilla Adams, the woman who sealed a $1 million contract during a power outage? A few flight delays aren't going to stop you." Her confidence bolstered mine, but there was something in her voice and undertone I couldn't identify. Before I could question her further, the airport announced boarding for my new flight. "Gotta go, Maddie. Love you." "Love you too. Text me when you get there. Can't wait to hear about Derek's reaction." As I settled into my seat on the smaller aircraft, my mind drifted to Derek's recent behavior. The financial stress had been taking a toll on him. He had become increasingly secretive about his business dealings, changing the subject whenever I asked specific questions. One night, I'd overheard him on the phone in his office, voice tense. "I need more time," he had said to whoever was on the line. "I'm working on a solution." When I asked about it later, he claimed it was just a difficult client. But his explanation felt hollow, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. That wasn't the only concerning incident. Derek had recently begun asking unusual questions about my hiking experience. "Remember that trail we saw in the travel magazine, the one along the cliffs in California? How would you feel about doing that for our anniversary?" The trail was known for being dangerous, with several fatal accidents each year. It seemed an odd choice for someone like Derek, who typically preferred comfort over adventure. The third delay hit as we prepared to land at the regional airport. Severe thunderstorms forced us to divert to a different airport nearly 60 miles from our intended destination. By the time we landed, it was past 9 in the evening. The rental car counters were closing, but I managed to secure the last available vehicle, a compact car ill-suited for mountain roads. Exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me as I programmed the cabin address into the GPS. 12 hours after leaving home, I was still hours away from seeing Derek. Was this entire trip a mistake? The drive through unfamiliar mountain roads in darkness was nerve-wracking. The GPS signal cut out multiple times, forcing me to rely on the directions Derek had once mentioned casually. "Turn left at the abandoned gas station, then it's about 8 miles up the winding road." The beauty of the mountain's scenery was lost in the darkness, though occasionally my headlights would illuminate dense pine forests or steep drops that made my stomach lurch. Twice I took wrong turns, having to carefully execute 3-point turns on narrow mountain roads. During this lonely drive, I reflected on our marriage. When had things begun to change? When had Derek's touch stopped lingering? When had our conversations become functional rather than intimate? Perhaps it was after his business struggled to gain traction. Or maybe when I received my promotion instead of him landing that big client he always talked about. The distance had grown so gradually, I hadn't noticed until it became a chasm. Around 11:30, I finally spotted the cabin's lights through the trees. It was larger than I had imagined, more luxury retreat than rustic getaway. 4 unfamiliar cars were parked in the gravel driveway, confirmation that Derek's friends had all arrived. I parked a short distance away, not wanting the sound of my arrival to ruin the surprise. Gathering my overnight bag and the bourbon, I took a moment to check my appearance in the car's visor mirror. 12 hours of travel had left me looking less than fresh, but there was nothing to be done about it now. The cabin glowed with warm light, and I could hear music and male laughter from inside. For a brief moment I hesitated. Would my presence be an unwelcome intrusion on their guy's weekend? Should I have called first? No, I decided. After 8 years of marriage, I had earned the right to surprise my husband. With renewed determination, I approached the cabin. Rather than knock on the front door where everyone would see me, I remembered Derek mentioning a back entrance that led directly to the kitchen, perfect for my surprise entrance. I made my way carefully around the side of the cabin, the bourbon clutched in one hand, my bag in the other. The back door was unlocked, as is often the case with remote cabins. I eased it open, prepared to call out to Derek. But the words died in my throat as I heard his voice from the adjacent room, words that would change my life forever. I stepped quietly into the cabin's kitchen, the door closing silently behind me. The space was rustic yet modern, with high-end appliances contrasting against the log walls and stone countertops. Derek had mentioned the cabin belonged to his friend Jake's family, but he'd never described it as the luxury retreat I was now seeing. The main room was just beyond the kitchen, separated by a breakfast bar that allowed me to hear the conversation clearly while remaining out of sight. I recognized Derek's voice immediately, the familiar cadence that had once made me feel safe now sending chills down my spine. "The business is underwater, guys. I'm talking serious debt, not just a bad quarter. Can't you get a loan?" This voice belonged to someone I didn't recognize. "With my credit score, no bank will touch me. And Camilla keeps asking questions about the finances. She's not stupid. It's just a matter of time before she figures out I've been moving money around." My breath caught. What money? What had he been hiding from me? "What about her family? Can't you ask for help?" Another unfamiliar voice. Derek's bitter laugh echoed through the cabin. "Her parents are teachers. They don't have that kind of cash. And even if they did, explaining why I need it would reveal everything. So what's your plan?" This was Jake's voice, Derek's oldest friend whom I'd met at our wedding. There was a pause, the clink of ice in glasses. I held my breath, the bourbon bottle growing heavy in my hand. "We increased our life insurance policies last month." Derek's voice had dropped lower, but in the quiet cabin I could still hear every word. If she vanished, that insurance money could clear my debts. Start fresh, you know. The world stopped. My husband, the man I had loved for 8 years, was casually discussing my disappearance as a financial solution. I felt physically ill, my free hand gripping the counter to steady myself. "Dude, that's dark." Someone laughed nervously. "It's just talk. But I'm desperate here." Derek didn't sound remorseful or embarrassed. He sounded calculating. "Or you could finally date her sister guilt-free." Jake's voice now followed by laughter. "Madison's been giving you those looks for years." "Madison's hot, no doubt," Derek replied. "And she's been texting me some interesting photos lately." My sister. My husband. The betrayal doubled, cutting twice as deep. I flashed back to Madison's enthusiastic encouragement of this trip, the strange tone in her voice. Had she known I would be walking into this conversation? Was this her way of revealing the truth? "You're both assholes," another voice said, though the tone was amused rather than condemning. "But seriously, Derek, what's the real plan?" "I've been researching places where hiking accidents happen frequently." Derek's voice had shifted to what I recognized as his business presentation tone. "There's this trail near Lake Tahoe. Steep cliffs, dangerous in certain weather. Statistics show several fatalities each year." "Jesus, Derek." Someone sounded genuinely uncomfortable now. "I'm not saying I'd do it." But his tone suggested otherwise. "But Camilla mentioned wanting to go hiking for our anniversary. Said she wanted more adventure in our lives." I had said that months ago during a rare intimate conversation about breaking out of our routines. He had taken my vulnerable sharing and twisted it into something sinister. The life insurance policy has a 2-year suicide exclusion, but covers accidents immediately, Derek continued. $2 million would clear my debts and leave plenty to start over. Does she suspect anything? Jake again. Camilla. No way. She thinks we're having normal marriage problems. Believes everything I tell her. Always has. The bourbon bottle nearly slipped from my numb fingers as Derek's words confirmed what I was hearing. This wasn't just idle talk among drunk friends. My husband was actually contemplating my death for financial gain. I thought about the password-protected phone, the late nights, the sudden interest in my work travel schedule. The pieces were fitting together in a horrifying new pattern. Derek needed money, and I was worth more to him dead than alive. And Madison, my own sister. The betrayal burned like acid. I couldn't hear any more. Moving with silent precision born of shock, I placed the bourbon bottle on the kitchen counter. My hand trembled, but I managed not to make a sound. I left my fingerprints on that bottle deliberately, my final message to the man who had just shattered my world. The return to my car felt like moving through a nightmare. My body functioned automatically while my mind processed the unthinkable. I started the engine and drove away from the cabin, no longer concerned about being quiet or noticed. If they heard a car, they would assume it was a neighbor or someone who had taken a wrong turn. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, tears blurring my vision, until I was forced to pull over on a scenic overlook. The night spread out before me, stars visible in the clear mountain air. How could something so beautiful exist in a world where my husband plotted my death? My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Did you surprise him yet? How did it go? I couldn't bring myself to respond. Was she an active participant in this plot, or just someone Derek fantasized about? Either way, I couldn't trust her now. As the initial shock began to fade, a cold clarity took its place. I needed to think strategically. If Derek was capable of contemplating murder for insurance money, what else might he do? I couldn't confront him. I couldn't go home. I needed to disappear, but on my own terms. I located a small motel about 20 miles from the cabin, a place Derek would never think to look. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the motel office, I paid cash and used my middle name when the clerk asked for identification. The suspicion in his eyes told me I looked as traumatized as I felt, but he handed over the key without comment. Inside the dated but clean room, I sat on the edge of the bed and began to assess my situation with the analytical mind that had made me successful in my career. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. The motel bed was hard and smelled faintly of cigarettes despite the no smoking sign prominently displayed on the door. I sat cross-legged in the center, my phone and wallet spread before me like divination tools, trying to map out a future that had shattered just hours ago. My hands still trembled as I checked my banking apps. Derek and I maintained separate accounts for daily expenses, but shared a joint account for household bills. My primary checking and savings accounts were in my name, only a remnant of financial independence I'd insisted on maintaining even after marriage. Thank God for that small foresight. Yet as I reviewed recent transactions, my blood ran cold. There were transfers I didn't recognize, money moving from my personal savings to our joint account, and then large withdrawals. Over the past 3 months, nearly $40,000 had disappeared. Financial consulting business, my ass, I muttered to the empty room. The login history showed multiple access points from devices I didn't recognize. Derek had been accessing my accounts without my knowledge. How had he gotten my passwords? Then I remembered the helpful password management software he had installed on our home computer last year. "It'll keep all your information secure, Cam," he had said. I immediately changed every password on every account, creating new complex combinations no one could guess. Then I transferred the remaining money from our joint account to my personal account. It wasn't theft if it was already mine. Madison had texted twice more, her concern seemingly growing. "Camilla, are you okay? Hello? Did something happen? Call me." I couldn't bring myself to respond. Not yet. Not until I knew her role in all of this. The memory of Jake's comment and Derek's response about my sister sent fresh waves of nausea through me. Desperate for connection but afraid to trust anyone, I texted Jenny, my assistant and friend. "Jenny, I need a massive favor. Emergency personal situation. Need 2 weeks off starting now. Can you cover with Thomas and will explain when I can?" Her response came quickly despite the late hour. "Of course. Are you safe? Do you need help?" That simple question of concern broke something in me, and tears flowed freely for the first time since leaving the cabin. Was I safe? I didn't know anymore. "I'm okay. Just need time. Please keep this between us." "You got it. Take care of yourself. I'm here when you need me." Jenny's uncomplicated support was a lifeline in that moment. I created a new email account Derek knew nothing about and sent Jenny a message from it explaining that this would be my contact method for the immediate future. Around 3 a.m, I withdrew $500 from an ATM, the maximum daily limit. I would need cash to avoid leaving an electronic trail. Then I researched flights to Costa Rica, the dream destination that Derek and I had perpetually postponed. Costa Rica had no extradition treaty with the United States for financial crimes. Not that I was planning to commit any, but the knowledge gave me comfort. It was also relatively affordable and had a large expat community where an American woman could blend in without raising too many questions. I found a flight leaving Denver the next morning at 11. Using my emergency credit card, the one Derek didn't know about, because I'd gotten it after a previous identity theft scare, I purchased a one-way ticket. The price was exorbitant for last-minute booking, but money was the least of my concerns now. As dawn broke over the mountains, I questioned my decision repeatedly. Was I overreacting? Had it just been drunken talk among friends? No. Derek had been specific. Lake Tahoe. Insurance policy details. Research on hiking accidents. This wasn't casual conversation. It was premeditation. I remembered my grandmother, my mother's mother who had fled an abusive marriage in the 1960s when such things were rarely discussed. "Always have a plan to leave Camilla," she had told me once. "A little money hidden away, a place to go. Not because you expect the worst, but because you deserve an escape route if the worst happens." At the time, I thought she was being dramatic, shaped by her own traumatic experience. Now I recognized her wisdom. The worst had indeed happened, just not in the way anyone might have predicted. I showered in the motel's weak spray, the hot water failing to wash away the sense of contamination I felt. As I dressed in the same clothes from yesterday, my phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Morning, babe. Miss you. The guys are all jealous. I have such a smart, successful wife. How's the presentation prep going?" The casual normalcy of it made me physically ill. He had been discussing ways to kill me hours earlier, and now he was sending loving texts as if nothing had happened. The performance of it all, the years of deception, hit me like a physical blow. I didn't respond. Instead, I checked out of the motel and drove to Denver International Airport, returning the rental car and heading straight to the terminal. Every moment I expected to see Derek, somehow to feel his hand on my shoulder. The paranoia was overwhelming. At the airport shops, I purchased new basics, a change of clothes, toiletries, and a prepaid phone. In the women's restroom, I stood before the mirror and removed my wedding ring. 8 years of marriage slid off my finger with surprising ease. I washed my hands thoroughly afterward, a symbolic cleansing that provided little comfort. The platinum band with its princess-cut diamond represented nearly a decade of my life, dreams, plans, and trust. I considered throwing it in the trash, but instead tucked it into a zippered pocket of my bag. It was worth several $1,000s, and I might need that money where I was going. I cut up all my credit cards except the emergency one, leaving no plastic trail for Derek to follow. As I waited to board my flight, I obsessively checked news sites for any reports about the cabin or mysterious disappearances in the area. There were none. Derek wouldn't report me missing yet. He would assume I was at home going about my normal routine. When the boarding call came for my flight to San Jose, Costa Rica, I rose on shaky legs. The reality of what I was doing hit me fully. I was leaving everything behind: my career, my home, my identity. All because the man who had vowed to love and protect me was plotting my death. As the plane taxied down the runway, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in 12 hours, I felt like I could breathe. I was escaping. I would survive. During the flight, I scrolled through photos on my phone, years of memories captured in digital images. Derek and I on vacation in Florida, our anniversary dinner at the Signature Room, holiday gatherings with family, Madison and I at her college graduation. One by one, I deleted them, erasing the visible evidence of a life that had been built on lies. Each deletion felt like cutting away a diseased part of myself, painful but necessary for healing. When the plane began its descent into San Jose, I looked out at the lush green landscape below. Costa Rica land of pura vida, the pure life. Perhaps here I could find a way to start again, to build something true from the ashes of my marriage. The humid air hit me like a wall as I exited the airport. The vibrant colors, unfamiliar sounds, and tropical scents overwhelmed my senses. For a moment I stood frozen, the enormity of my decision paralyzing me. What had I done? Where would I go? How would I survive? Then I remembered Derek's words in that cabin, so cold and calculating, discussing my death as a business solution. My resolve hardened. I hailed a taxi and asked to be taken to a moderately priced hotel in the city center. The driver, noticing my limited Spanish, switched to accented English. "First time in Costa Rica, señora." "Yes," I replied. "And I may be staying for quite a while." The uncertainty of my future stretched before me, terrifying but also strangely liberating. For the first time in 8 years, every decision was entirely my own. The Hotel Don Carlos in downtown San Jose became my first home in Costa Rica. The colonial-style building with its terracotta roof and inner courtyard garden provided a peaceful sanctuary as I gathered my thoughts and planned my next steps. That first night alone in a foreign country, the reality of my situation hit me in waves. One moment I felt empowered by my escape, the next, overwhelmed by grief for the life and love I had lost, or rather had never truly had. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by nightmares of Derek finding me or dreams where our life together had been real and happy. Morning brought clarity and purpose. I needed to establish myself, find work, and create a new identity, not in the illegal sense, but in redefining who I was beyond Derek's wife or marketing executive Camilla. I checked my new email to find Jenny had already responded. "Covered everything with Thomason, told him family emergency, take all the time you need." BTW, your husband called the office looking for you, said you weren't answering your cell. I said you were in meetings all day. Is everything okay? So Derek had begun to wonder where I was. It had been less than 24 hours since I'd overheard his conversation. His concern wasn't for my safety, but for keeping track of his intended victim. I replied with limited information. Thanks, Jenny. Not okay, but will be. Please continue to say I'm in meetings or working from home. Will contact you when I can. Your discretion means everything right now. After breakfast in the hotel's small restaurant, I ventured out to explore the city, keeping to busy public areas where I felt safer. San Jose was a mix of colonial architecture and modern developments, bustling with life and color that stood in stark contrast to my internal turmoil. At an internet cafe, I researched coastal towns where I might settle. The Pacific Coast appealed to me particularly, the smaller communities away from major tourist centers. I needed a place to disappear, at least until I figured out my long-term plan. 3 days passed before Derek sent his first text message. Hey babe, haven't heard from you. Everything okay? Call when you can. So casual, so normal. As if he hadn't been discussing my demise days earlier. I didn't respond. The following day he called twice and left a voicemail that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. Then came a text to Madison that she forwarded to me. Maddie, have you heard from Cam? She's not responding to my messages. Getting worried. Madison's accompanying message read, What's going on? Derek's freaking out. Are you okay? I still couldn't trust her enough to respond honestly, but I needed to prevent a missing persons report. I sent her a brief text. Taking some personal time. Need space. Please respect that. Will call when ready. Her response was immediate. WTF, Cam. Are you having a breakdown? Derek is worried sick. We all are. The we struck me like a slap. Had she aligned herself with him? Was she part of his plan? The doubt tortured me. I'm fine. Just need time alone. Please don't push. After a week in San Jose, I took a bus to Samara, a small beach town on the Nicoya Peninsula. The journey was long and uncomfortable, but as we approached the coast and I caught my first glimpse of the Pacific Ocean, something inside me settled. This was the right decision. Samara was perfect, small enough to be off the main tourist circuit, but developed enough to have basic amenities and a small expat community. I found a modest apartment for rent above a local family's home, paying 3 months in advance with cash, grateful for my emergency fund. My landlords, the Morales family, spoke limited English, but welcomed me warmly. Their teenage daughter, Lucia, was studying English and delighted to practice with me, becoming my unofficial guide to local life. Why you come to Samara alone? She asked one evening as we sat on the small balcony of my apartment watching the sunset. I had prepared for this question. I needed a change. A divorce. Not entirely a lie. Lo siento, I am sorry, she said, patting my hand. But Samara is good place to heal corazon. She was right about that. The rhythm of life in the small beach town began to work its magic on me. I established a routine beginning each day with a walk on the beach as the sun rose, followed by Spanish lessons with a local teacher I hired. In the afternoons, I would read or use the town's small internet cafe to check my secure email. Jenny continued to cover for me at work, reporting that Derek had come to the office twice more looking for me. He seems genuinely worried, she wrote. Should I tell him anything? No, I replied firmly. Just that I'm taking personal leave and will contact him when ready. 2 weeks after my disappearance, Derek reported me missing to the Chicago police. Jenny forwarded me the news article from the local paper. Chicago executive missing husband concerned. The article included a recent photo of me and quoted Derek expressing worry about my mental state due to work pressure and recent unusual behavior. He painted himself as the concerned husband while subtly suggesting I might have had a breakdown. The calculated nature of his public persona versus the private reality made me physically ill. I drafted an anonymous email to the Chicago Police Department from a new email address stating simply that I had left voluntarily and was safe, but wished to remain out of contact with my husband. I didn't explain why. They would likely assume marital problems or an affair. Meanwhile, I began using my marketing skills to find remote work. I created a freelance profile under my middle name offering content creation and strategy consultation. The work trickled in slowly, but it was enough to supplement my savings and give me purpose. Samara offered a freedom I had never experienced. The local community operated on Tico time, relaxed and present-focused. No one cared about my designer clothes now replaced by simple sundresses and shorts or career achievements. My value wasn't measured by my productivity or status. My first real friendship formed with Elena, a Costa Rican woman who owned a small cafe near the beach. When I asked if she needed help with marketing her business to tourists, she offered me free coffee in exchange for advice. Soon, I was helping her create a simple website and social media presence, bringing in more foreign customers. "You have gift," Elena told me one afternoon as we sat at a corner table reviewing the new menu design I had created. "Why you use it here, not in big company?" I considered how to answer, deciding on a version of the truth. My husband was not a good man. I needed to leave quickly. Elena nodded, no judgment in her expression. "Many women come to Costa Rica running from something. Some find peace here." "And the others?" I asked. "They carry their ghosts with them," she said simply. "The choice is yours." Her words stayed with me that night as I sat on my small balcony, listening to the distant sound of the surf. Was I carrying my ghosts with me? Derek's betrayal, Madison's possible complicity, the death of my former life, they all haunted me. But with each passing day in Samara, their power diminished slightly. After 6 weeks of silence, I finally checked my regular email account using a VPN service to hide my location. There were dozens of messages from Derek, their tone evolving from casual concern to frantic worry to anger. The most recent one chilled me to the bone. "I know you're alive, Camilla. Bank records show your account was accessed. I will find you. We need to talk. I love you." The threat veiled as love was unmistakable. I immediately closed the account and created another new one unreachable by Derek. What truly stunned me was an email from Madison sent a month after my disappearance. "Cam, whatever you think you know, please talk to me. Derek is acting strange. He tried to access your life insurance policy, but couldn't without a death certificate. Something feels wrong here. I'm worried about you both. Please just let me know you're safe." For the first time, I wondered if I had misjudged my sister. Had she really been involved with Derek, or was she an unwitting part of his plan? The doubt gnawed at me, but I still couldn't bring myself to contact her. That changed when Derek's social media posts began mentioning searching for me in Central America. How had he guessed? Had the police traced my anonymous email? Panic drove me to pack my belongings and move to another town further down the coast, saying a tearful goodbye to Elena and the Morales family who had become like my own family. "You always welcome back," Lucia insisted as she hugged me. "This your home too now." In my new location, I began volunteer work with a local sea turtle conservation project, finding healing and protecting these ancient, vulnerable creatures. The work was physical and demanding, patrolling beaches at night to protect nesting turtles and their eggs from poachers. It left little time for dwelling on the past. 6 months into my new life, I had found, if not happiness, then at least purpose and a measure of peace. My Spanish had improved dramatically. I had made new friends, and my freelance business had grown enough to support my simple lifestyle. Then came the email that would change everything again. From my new secure account, I had finally sent Madison a brief message, letting her know I was alive and safe, but providing no details. Her response was immediate and shocking. "Thank God. Cam, I found something on Derek's computer. We need to talk urgently. This isn't about me or our issues. It's about your safety. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed to a video call using a secure platform and sitting in a location that revealed nothing about my whereabouts. When Madison's face appeared on my screen, the months of separation fell away. Despite my suspicions, she was still my sister, and the sight of her brought unexpected tears. "Camilla, thank God," she breathed. "You look different, tanned. Your hair is longer." "What did you find, Madison?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Her expression grew serious. "I went to your condo to pick up some of your things. Derek was acting so strange selling furniture, talking about moving. He left his laptop open when he went to take a call. Cam, there was a document, a detailed plan about taking you hiking near Lake Tahoe. It described an accidental fall in detail, including how to make it look legitimate." My blood ran cold. Hearing my suspicions confirmed was both vindicating and terrifying. "There's more," Madison continued. "The FBI is investigating him for financial fraud. Apparently, he's been running some kind of investment scheme. Several clients have filed complaints." "Did you know?" I asked the question that had haunted me for months, finally escaping. "About him and his plans, about the texts he said you sent him." Madison's face registered genuine shock. "Texts? What texts, Cam? I've barely spoken to Derek in years, except at family gatherings. I always thought he was charming but shallow. What texts is he talking about?" The relief was overwhelming. My sister hadn't betrayed me. Whatever Derek had claimed about her was just another of his lies. "I need to show you everything," Madison said. "I've copied files, emails, evidence of the fraud. I'm coming to you." "That's not safe," I protested. "I'm already on my way," she replied. "I have a flight to San Jose tomorrow. I tracked your email IP address, Cam. I know you're somewhere in Costa Rica." My tech-savvy sister had found me when Derek couldn't. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a hotel in a town I didn't live in. The risk was enormous, but I needed to see the evidence for myself. 2 days later, Madison and I embraced for the first time in over 6 months. The sister I had doubted had become my ally, bringing with her a thumb drive containing damning evidence of Derek's crimes, both financial and the plot against my life. He told his friends I was emotionally unstable and had abandoned him during his financial troubles, Madison explained as we reviewed the files. But the FBI doesn't believe his innocent act. They found evidence he's embezzled over $2 million from clients. "And the life insurance policy?" I asked quietly. "He tried to claim you were presumed dead, but the insurance company refused without a death certificate." That's when the FBI started looking more closely at his finances. Together, we contacted an attorney who specialized in both criminal law and victim protection. Through secure channels, I provided testimony about what I had overheard that night in the cabin, the financial discrepancies I had discovered, and Derek's threatening messages. The evidence was overwhelming. 3 weeks after Madison found me, Derek was arrested for fraud and conspiracy. The news reached me via an email from my attorney while I sat on my small balcony in Costa Rica. "They found the bourbon bottle," Madison told me over a secure call that evening. Your fingerprints were on it, placing you at the cabin that night, corroborating your testimony. Derek can't claim you made it up. The relief was profound, but bittersweet. My marriage had been a fiction, my husband a criminal who had planned my death, yet part of me still grieved for the love I thought we had shared. With Derek in custody awaiting trial, I made the difficult decision to return briefly to Chicago to finalize our divorce and tie up loose ends. Staying with Madison, rather than at my old condo, I felt like a stranger in the city that had been my home for most of my adult life. Facing Derek in court was both terrifying and empowering. He looked smaller somehow. His confident facade crumbled under the weight of his crimes. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I saw not the man I had loved, but a desperate con artist whose schemes had finally collapsed. Derek accepted a plea deal confessing to the fraud charges and the conspiracy against me. The judge's sentencing remarks were scathing, highlighting the cold-blooded calculation with which he had planned to murder his wife for financial gain. As I sold our condo and closed our joint accounts, I felt as though I was dismantling not just our financial entanglements, but the last vestiges of our life together. Each signature on legal documents was another step toward freedom. The final piece fell into place when my divorce was granted on grounds of attempted harm and fraud. The judge awarded me a substantial settlement from Derek's frozen assets, though much of the money would go to repaying his defrauded clients. Madison urged me to stay in Chicago to rebuild my life there. You can start over here, Cam. Your old company would hire you back in a heartbeat. But Costa Rica had become more than a hiding place. It had become my home. I returned to Samara to Elena's Cafe and the Sea Turtle Conservation Project. Using my settlement money, I opened a small marketing consultancy focused on helping local businesses connect with eco-tourists. Elena became my business partner, her local knowledge complementing my marketing expertise. Together we built something meaningful, something true. Madison visited regularly, our relationship stronger than ever after weathering such betrayal together. On her second visit, she brought news that Derek had been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for his financial crimes and an additional 10 years for conspiracy to commit murder. He'll be an old man when he gets out, she said as we walked along the beach at sunset. If he lives that long, I replied, surprised at my own indifference. The man who had dominated my thoughts for so long had become increasingly irrelevant to my new life. That evening, sitting on my balcony watching the stars emerge over the Pacific, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. A 12-hour flight, a bottle of bourbon, and a conversation never meant for my ears had saved my life in more ways than one. The woman who had flown to that cabin no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had faced betrayal and survived, who had rebuilt her life on her own terms. Costa Rica had not just been my escape, it had become my rebirth. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't taken that impulsive trip to surprise Derek. Would I have been another tragic news story, a hiking accident victim whose body was found at the bottom of a cliff? Would Derek have mourned publicly while privately collecting my insurance money? Would he and Madison have actually gotten together, bonding over their grief? These questions no longer keep me awake at night. 3 years have passed since I left that bourbon bottle on the counter and disappeared to Costa Rica. My marketing consultancy has grown into a successful business, employing 5 local staff. Elena and I have expanded to a second location in a neighboring beach town focusing on sustainable tourism. The nightmares have mostly stopped, though occasionally I still wake up in a cold sweat, the echo of Derek's calculating voice discussing my death ringing in my ears. On those nights, I walk to the beach and let the rhythm of the waves wash away the remnants of fear. Madison visits every few months, staying in the guest room of my beachfront home. Our relationship has healed and strengthened through our shared trauma. She was the one who encouraged me to finally tell my story publicly after Derek's appeals were denied and his conviction was finalized. "People need to hear this, Cam," she insisted. "Your story could help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late." She was right. Looking back, there were so many red flags I had ignored or rationalized away. The password-protected phone, the secretive behavior, the unusual questions about my hiking experience, the excessive life insurance policy, Derek's growing interest in my work travel schedule, all pieces of a puzzle that only became clear when I overheard his true intentions. The bourbon bottle became a key piece of evidence in Derek's trial. My fingerprints placed me at the cabin that night, corroborating my testimony about what I had overheard. In a strange twist of fate, my gift to my husband became the tool of his undoing. I've learned that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to unexpected freedom. Had Derek been a loving husband, I might never have discovered Costa Rica's healing power or my own capacity for resilience. I might never have built this business that supports local families and protects the environment. I might never have found this version of myself stronger and more authentic than before. The insurance money was never paid out, of course. Instead, after a lengthy legal battle, I received a portion of Derek's frozen assets as part of our divorce settlement. Most of the money went to his fraud victims, but what remained was enough to start my new life. I used some to establish a small foundation that helps women escape dangerous relationships, providing financial assistance and resources when they need it most. Last month, I received word that Derek was involved in a prison fight and seriously injured. For a brief moment, I felt a flash of the old connection, wondering if I should feel anything for the man who had once been the center of my world. But the moment passed, leaving only a peaceful detachment in its wake. My life now bears little resemblance to the one I left behind. My days are filled with meaningful work, genuine friendships, and the simple pleasures of beach life. I've dated occasionally, though I approach relationships with a caution born of experience. Trust comes slowly now, but when it comes, it's based on actions rather than words or promises. Perhaps the most profound change is in how I value myself. I am no longer defined by my relationship status, my career achievements, or my material possessions. My worth isn't measured by someone else's love or validation. It comes from within, strengthened by surviving the unthinkable and building something beautiful from the ashes. That night at the cabin could have been the end of my story. Instead, it became the beginning of a new one, written entirely on my own terms. The 12-hour journey that was meant to save my marriage ended up saving my life in ways I could never have imagined. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, trust your instincts. Those small doubts, those quiet moments of unease about someone's behavior, they matter. They're your inner wisdom trying to protect you. I ignored mine for years, making excuses and rationalizing away the red flags. Don't make the same mistake. Life can change in an instant, sometimes through tragedy, sometimes through revelation. Mine changed when I overheard my husband plotting my death. But the life I've built since then is more authentic and meaningful than anything I had before. Have you ever had a moment that completely changed your life's direction? Share your story in the comments below. And if this video helped you in any way, please like and subscribe to help others find it too. Remember, sometimes the end of one journey is just the beginning of a much better one. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to write your own, even when it means walking away from everything you thought you wanted.